when you're telling the universe what you want, you wouldn't go into the Italian restaurant and sit down and when the waiter comes up and asks you what you want, say, I don't want spaghetti. You wouldn't say that. You sit down at the Italian restaurant and you're like, I want spaghetti bolognese with extra meatballs. If you're me, right? You're really, really specific. You have to do the same with the universe. You have to do the same in manifestation and in goal setting. And not only do you have to be specific in the thing that you desire, the outcome, but you have to be specific and set specific action steps that will create the outcome.
This is Leah Steele, AKA The Wealth Witch, and this is my podcast. I'm here to activate you to remembrance of your divine birthright to be wealthy in all areas of your life. This podcast is for people ready to have controversial conversations about the financial control, manipulation, and tyranny that faces humanity today.
I'm gonna live in freedom. I'm gonna live my destiny. I'm gonna live my freedom. I'm gonna live, the time is right now.
The Wealth Witch. It's for the people who are ready to wake up, deconstruct their wealth programming, and free themselves from the financial slavery consciousness that serves the global financial agenda. I'm committed to realizing a new global wealth paradigm where economic freedom is the reality and where you get to design and live the life of your dreams. Now let's do the damn thing.
Welcome to day 3 of Money, Magic, Manifestation. And today we are going to talk all about the science of manifestation. The really beautiful thing about this series that we've done is that we're touching on everything. The energetics of money and how we can align ourselves to that. That's what we talked about on day 1. On day 2, we talked about the magic of money and making your entire life a ritual. And today we're going to talk about the science of manifestation. So when we combine all of these things together, a knowing and understanding of the energetics of money, a knowing and understanding of how to make your whole entire life a ritual and to be ceremonial in your relationship with money, to magnetize it to you. And now we're going to talk about the actual science of manifestation, the combination of all of these things and looking at manifestation from a purely holistic perspective and not focusing on just one or the other is what really gives us an edge up over everybody else out there trying to manifest the lives that they deeply desire. So if you've been following me for a long time, you know that I am not a fan of the love and light kind of spiritual bypass your way to the life that you desire, because I think that it doesn't work. And, The Secret was revolutionary when it came out. And one part of it was correct. But you can't simply just sit on your ass and try to manifest the life that you deeply desire. Sustainable manifestation and certainly sustainable wealth does not come from that. You cannot continually create the things that you desire and manifest the things that you desire in your life if you're not willing to take action, if you're not willing to, when you're receiving that divine guidance, taking inspired action towards the goal or the manifestation that you're desiring to achieve. So a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is that science. And we're going to be talking about it from a brain and body perspective. We're going to be talking about neural circuits. We're going to be talking about molecules. We're going to be talking about neuroplasticity. And I really want to give you a good overview of some of this new science that helps us to really understand physiologically how we manifest and how we achieve goals. This is a game changer, you guys, because when you understand this and you fully harness our spiritual potential, which is the magic and which is the understanding of energetics. Well, the understanding of energetics is both scientific and magic as far as I'm concerned. But when you combine these things, this is when you start to see rapid manifestation happening. And this is right now for me what I'm so passionate about and what I'm going to be teaching in Mastering Your Spiritual Money Game. Because it's one thing to write affirmations. It's one thing to bring yourself into energetic alignment with the things that you desire to create. It's one thing to do mantras. It's one thing to, even do emotional clearing. Though I put emotional clearing more on the scientific side of creation and manifestation because we are using scientific based modalities when we do emotional clearing from the body. But to me, what I love about emotional clearing is I believe it is both magic and science. And it is both mindset and science. It is both our intention and science. And so that's why I incorporate it into everything I do. And it's why we're adding it to Mastering Your Spiritual Money Game. So for me, it's really like having a good understanding of the science, continuing to be dedicated and devotional to my personal practices and to my pursuit of my goals and the things that I desire to manifest. And really on a daily basis, checking in with my energy and making sure that I'm aligned to the things that I desire. So when we put all of these things in combination, that is when magic happens. You create the life you deeply desire and you manifest your goals, no matter how big they are. We are going to talk a little bit today about how to set goals and how big those goals should actually be. But we'll get to that in a minute. So welcome. I'm super excited for today. I've been, and truthfully, like this has been the day that I have been the most excited about in this series. And that's because this is the new information that I'm adding into the wealth work that I'm doing. Because it works, because it gives us an edge. And for me, like I'm all about the hacks. And I'm all about having an edge. I want to know the shortest, most efficient way to my destination. Always. If you've got a hack, if you've got a tool, if you've got a trip, if you've got a trip, I want to go. If you've got a tip, I want to know what it is. Because the truth is, I believe that we will all achieve our destination. We will all get to the place that we're desiring to go. We will all get to the place that we're destined to go, no matter what. But for me, I would rather get there more quickly so I can move on to the next thing. And the people that tend to be drawn to work with me are the same. They want the hacks, they want the tools, they want the tips, they want the tricks. They want to know how to maximize their performance. And the difference between the people that come to work with me and maybe the law of attraction people or the secret people is my people are willing to work. Every journaling session that I do, I sign off by saying, please help me, blah, 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 whatever it is that I'm desiring to create. And in that, I'm speaking to my higher self, my guides, my guardians, my ancestors. And so I'm like, please help and assist me too. I'm ready and willing to do my part. Show me what it is. Because I know that I do not create my reality without actioning my desires, without receiving that divine guidance and then immediately taking that inspired action. I say something frequently that I don't take any action at all until I know the exact next right inspired action to take. So I am comfortable in the waiting if I haven't received the divine guidance and I don't know with absolute clarity and certainty the step to take, the next step to take, I take no action at all. And I'm just like, as I'm saying this, I'm laughing because I'm like, oh my gosh, I should tell you guys about my the certainty factor, my next masterclass that I'm doing. But I'm like, I feel like I'm constantly like, oh, and then we're doing this, oh, we're doing this, and we're doing this, and we're doing this. But that is how it works, right? When I align myself to divine guidance, then the divine speaks to me and tells me what to put out into the world. So yeah, so, you know, I am known for my certainty. And my friends like will all tell you that like, that is my superpower. My certainty is my superpower. And as a result of that, we've decided to do a certainty activation and masterclass because yes, I have it, but it can be activated in everyone. And when you have the certainty codes, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you put an offer out and nobody buys it. It doesn't matter if you create a goal to achieve something and you don't hit the goal. It doesn't matter if you desire to manifest something and you don't manifest it by the date that you desired to manifest it, because you know that it is coming to you in divine time and when it is meant to. And you know that you have the ability to tweak that at some level, but you don't have to sit in states of insecurity or worrying that you're not good enough or questioning your worthiness and deserving, because you are certain and you know. So these are the codes that I really desire to activate in my community. And so we're going to be doing this certainty factor activation, which will be a masterclass and an activation of certainty codes. And it's going to be next level. And if you know, I only do these activations when I'm guided to, because these are my activations where I'm doing energy activations, I'm doing light activations, sometimes I'm doing galactic language transmissions. These are probably the things that I'm most vulnerable and most hesitant to share, because it's a part of myself that is, it's a part of myself actually that I have difficulty stepping into certainty. So of course, this masterclass and activation will be a whole entire transmission for me in addition to you. So I'm not sure if we have a link for the certainty factor master class. It's not even a master class, it's an activation. It's the certainty factor activation. It was going to happen this weekend, but we've actually moved it to, I think, August 13th. August 20th at 10 a.m. Bali time. That's happening. So that's 1 month from today. So if you want to activate your certainty codes, certainty. I don't take any action unless I am certain and I know the next right inspired action to take. That's what alleviates the doubt. That's what alleviates all the fear around not manifesting and creating the thing that I desire. Because I know if I wait until I am fully clear and have received the exact right divine guidance, and I know the next step to take, then I can take it. Then there's no mistakes. There's never a mistake if I wait. But if I'm constantly taking action and it's not inspired action, and I don't know that it's the next right action to take, that's where I get myself into trouble. And that's where, when the fear and the doubt comes up, I don't have a way to move myself out of it. When I am fully activated in my certainty, when my codes are operating at the highest potential that they can activate at, then I know that I'm taking the next right action. Then I don't have to doubt it, because there's never any mistakes. Wherever I am, whatever I'm actioning, wherever that's taking me on the path and on the journey, it's in the right direction, even if it doesn't seem like it in the minute. At the end of the destination, at the end of the journey, when I get to the destination, it's always the right place if I've taken inspired action, but not if I'm just actioning things that I'm not certain about. So that is a big piece of manifestation for me as well. And it does take some practice to really fully step into certainty, but those codes can be activated in you, and you can embrace that in each moment of every day. But you can't embrace that if you aren't being dedicated and disciplined to your personal practices. If you aren't consciously cultivating that connection to the highest level version of yourself and the divine on a daily basis. You will never be in a place where you can be fully certain and that when you receive the exact right divine guidance, that you know the exact next right inspired action to take. So again, every single piece of this requires that we do our part. We cannot go through life as a passenger in the car that is life. We have to be in the driver's seat, and we have to be ready and willing to do our part. We can't just be a bystander. It doesn't work that way. None of it does. Like, the divine isn't sending us the guidance if we aren't cultivating that connection with the divine, right? So we can't ever know the right inspired action to take if we aren't doing our part in the beginning, which is to cultivate that. And there's lots of ways to do that. Some of you do it in nature. Some of you do it by journaling. Some of you do it by meditating. Some of you do it by physical activity, some kind of source connecting physical activity that you do, whether that be yoga or surfing or hiking or skiing, like whatever it is. You have to determine what that is for you that connects you to source. And then you need to be disciplined in your devotion and dedication to that thing. That's your part. And then you let the universe show up. God, source, universe, all that is. Then you let God, source, universe, all that is show up and do its part. And then send the guidance. And then you have to act again. Now it's your turn again. It is a give and take relationship. It is not one-sided. God doesn't just bestow gifts upon you because he thinks you're an amazing energy and being of light, though I'm sure he does. We have to be an active participant in the life that we desire to create. And that's more than just visualizing something that we desire and writing it in a journal. So just keep that in mind as we're talking about everything that we're going to be speaking about today, because a lot of what we're talking about today is action. It is helping us hack into the body systems that help us maintain motivation and take action towards achieving the things that we desire to manifest. Now we're going to start talking about the science of manifestation. And I mentioned this on, I think, day one. It wasn't day one, it was day two, that there is one neurocircuit in the brain that affects manifestation. Just one, okay? And we want to talk about neuroplasticity. There's one neurocircuit in the brain that affects our ability to manifest, just one. And this is the recent science that they've been working on. And it's really, really fascinating because what it does is give us an ability to really target neuroplasticity. So what is neuroplasticity? Well, it's basically the brain's ability to modify, change, and adapt both structure and function throughout life and in response to experience. So our brain is like this incredible complex thing, right? And we're always studying all aspects of it and how it works together and how it works in conjunction with our physical body. And that's the thing that I think is really exciting about what we're going to be talking about today is how the brain actually interacts with the physical body. And for me, this is really, really fascinating because I have developed my emotional clearing modality, emotional resonance clearing, based on neuroplasticity and based on the brain's ability to change the experiences in the body and change how the body is storing emotions in the organs and meridian systems of the body. So if you want to know more about that, definitely hop over into the Emotional Resonance Clearing Community Facebook page. We are hosting a all week long summit. It starts tomorrow through Saturday, in that group where we're going to be talking about all things emotional resonance clearing. We're going to be talking about all things emotional resonance clearing. We're going to be doing group clearing in there. We're going to be doing live clearing in there. You have an opportunity to volunteer for some individual clearing. We're going to be talking about all of this goodness. I'm going to be talking about neuroplasticity and how it relates inside our modality. I won't take too much more time here, but this is something that I'm really, really excited about. It's very cutting edge in the emotional clearing world. And as far as I know, we are the only modality that is actually really, truly implementing these two things together. And as a result of that, we're seeing really incredible long-term change in our clients. So you definitely want to come check that out. So the body, Yasmin, please drop the summit link, actually, not the ERC community link. Drop the link for the summit instead of that one. That would be great. Thank you. And if you are watching on YouTube or Rumble, or you are listening on the podcast, we will drop the link to the summit in the show notes. So you can definitely check that out there and come and join us for the summit this week. It's going to be incredible. And all of the information will be staying up in the Facebook community after the summit. So if you're listening to this or watching this after this week is over, just know that all of that incredible information is still there for you to watch. So definitely come and join us for this free summit that we're hosting this week. So we have this incredible ability to adapt both our structure and our function through behavioral changes. And through the power of repetition as well, which I'm always talking about and we'll talk about in just a moment. Okay, so, and how does the brain actually make change? Well, and how does neuroplasticity occur? Well, it occurs through error. And so this is one of the things in manifestation where, I'm always like, it's okay if you get it wrong. It's okay if you don't manifest the thing that you desire. Where I'm telling my private clients, like, put that offer out into the world. It doesn't work. You get crickets. You only get a few people signed up. Good. That is actually amazing, because when you make errors, that's when neuroplasticity occurs. That's when the brain actually is able to modify and change your existence and your reality. And that's how we grow. That is how we catalyst really like who we're here to be in this world, is through errors. So there is this 85-15 rule. And it is that when we are in a state of optimal learning, we're only getting it right 85% of the time. 15% of the time, we're getting it wrong. So if you're getting it wrong 15 to 20% of the time, amazing. But especially as content creators and people that are doing spiritual work, like, we feel like if we're getting it wrong 15 to 20% of the time, we're failing. That is not the case. And no one can expect to get it right 100% of the time. So if you're listening to this, like, this is literally me, like, letting you off the hook. This is me saying to you, hey, like, it's not always going to be perfect. You're not always going to get it right. Don't be so hard on yourself, because your errors and the mistakes that you make and the lessons that you learn, that is actually what creates neuroplasticity. And that is what ultimately makes you successful in the big visions. Okay. So the small mistakes, the small errors create change in the brain that then enables you to achieve the big goals, to achieve the big manifestations, to create that life you deeply desire. It comes through these smaller errors. So just know, like, it's okay to get it wrong. It's okay to not be getting it right all of the time. And I know that there's some of my private clients on here right now that have been struggling with some things in their businesses. So hopefully that's a little bit of a relief to you, like, just stay the course. And obviously it's very important to do an autopsy of what didn't go right when you have those perceived failures, right? When you make those errors, when you have those mistakes, when you have those lessons, so that the brain can adapt, so that the brain can change. We've got to bring awareness to what went wrong, but it's nothing to be upset about. Like, it is actually like a process of life, and it's how we expand the brain's capacity. Okay, so this neural circuit, there's one neural circuit that affects manifestation, and it has 4 components. And we're not going to go too much into all of these. We're going to kind of talk about one because it's relative to what I want to share with you today. Within the neural circuit, there's the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that is activated by fear. So it is the part of the brain that desires to avoid embarrassment, right? And then we have the ventral striatum, basal ganglia, which is the part of our brain that's like the go and no-go, to do things or not do things. And then we have a part of the cortex, which is the lateral prefrontal, and that impacts planning, timing, and executive function. And then we have the orbitofrontal cortex, which is really all about like emotionality assessment regarding our progress. So, or where we'll be when we reach a goal. So essentially, we've got these 4 parts of the brain that are responsible for manifestation. One that controls fear and anxiety, one that controls action, one that controls planning, and one that controls emotionality. So there are really important things to consider when you are in a place where you are creating a goal, or you are, and when I'm saying creating a goal, like I'm talking about manifestation, right? Like we have to get really clear on the thing that we desire, or we can't manifest it, right? So there are 2 things that are really important. One is the value information. Is the thing worth pursuing or not? Like, is it worth pursuing the goal? Is it worth manifesting the thing, right? Like, and if it isn't inherently valuable to you, even if you think it is, if it isn't inherently valuable to you, you're never going to manifest it. So that's one thing that's really important. And then action. Like, so we have to assess the value of the thing that we desire, and then we have to take action. And this is what I was talking about previously. Like, there is no manifestation without action. There is no sustainable wealth without action. So when it comes to manifestation, just know from the get-go, you've got to do your part. Okay. So value is key, though, in this whole entire process. You don't set goals for yourself that aren't inherently valuable to you. And this is, one of the things that I see all the time in this world, in the manifestation world, is people, it's like the keeping up with the Joneses, right? Oh, I want to create this because I see somebody else creating that. Or I want to manifest this thing because somebody else I saw online manifested it. And then you can't manifest it. Well, it's because it's not inherently valuable to you. So, this is where we have to, this is what we're knowing ourselves. And Claire, my master wealth alchemy practitioner, just hopped on the call, and she's a fire constitution. This is where getting your Shen into balance and really understanding what it looks like to fully embody your Shen and your fire element is really important, because you have to know yourself to know whether or not something is inherently valuable to you. And so again, come join us in the week-long summit, because I know Cher, I'm calling her Claire because she's a fire constitution. I think that's her new name, Claire, Cher. She's going to be talking about the Shen and the fire element tomorrow, actually, in the summit. So knowing yourself, you have to know yourself in order to know and understand what's inherently valuable to you. And today we're also going to be talking about one neuromodulator in particular, and that is dopamine. Dopamine is instrumental and incredibly important in how we assess value. So it is probably the most important neuromodulator in assessing value. So we're going to be talking about dopamine today as well. So we're going to talk about goal setting, assessment of progress, goal execution, and why it's important. Like when I say goal, it's like our manifestation. But again, I want you to move out of this mindset of, I just think about something that I desire and then I manifest it. Like, it's really important that we're taking action. And in order to take action, we have to set incremental goals towards that thing that we desire. And we're going to be talking about why later. You constantly hear me talking about your big why, like why you want to manifest the thing and how that's so important. And so I want to talk kind of about how this process is going to unfold. And I'm going to be jumping around a little bit, but in the end, I'm going to come back and I'm going to recap all of the steps that you need to go through. So what we're going to talk about right now is the steps, and then some of the science behind it and why it's important. And then in the end, I'll come back and I'm going to give you like the actual steps that you need to go through. And then we'll recap those and send them out to you in the follow-up email with the replay of the call as well. So being focused on the destination, on the achievement of the thing that you desire to create, of the manifestation, is really important. But it's more important to be able to visually focus on it than it is conceptualize it. Okay. And just stay with me here for a minute, because this is a little bit difficult to explain in terms of manifestation, but it is absolutely applicable. So there was a study that was done recently, and it was 2 groups of runners, and one group of runner was directed to actually focus on the goal line, on the finish line, right? And the other group of runners was not. Like, they were told to visualize, like conceptualize achieving the goal. while the others were focused on the goal line, the actual physical goal line. Okay. So the group that actually looked at the finish line, that weren't visualizing or conceptualizing achieving the goal, but the ones that actually looked at the finish line were more effective, more efficient, and achieved it with less effort. Okay. 23% faster than the other group. So this is a big deal, because what it tells us and what it shows us is visualization isn't as important as we used to believe that it was. That idea of visualizing and conceptualizing, it's good and important in the beginning when we are looking at the wider scope of like the big vision of the thing that we desire to achieve. It's important to define our why. It's important to go through the steps that I'm often telling you to go through, which is like to define the why and then understand the positive impact that you manifesting the thing that you desire is going to have on you, is going to have on your immediate family, so your children and your significant other, the people that are closest to you, how that is going to positively impact your extended family, how that's going to impact your friends and your inner community, how that's going to affect your external community, and ultimately how it's going to affect and impact the world. So, and the other thing that I've often told you is women in particular manifest much more easily when they can determine a global or collective wide impact of them achieving the thing that they desire to achieve. So that definition of the why of the thing that you desire to manifest, very important on the front end, right? Very important for you to really understand why you're going after it, because what does that tell you? That it's inherently valuable to you. If you can define all of those steps of, all of that why, if you can define all of that, then you know that that thing's inherently valuable to you. If you're having difficulty defining any of that or some of that, you probably need to revise and revisit the manifestation, because if you're having difficulty figuring out how that's going to positively impact one of those groups of people, then it's likely not inherently valuable to you. The other thing that I say to do right after that is to not only determine the positive impact, but determine the negative impact. So what is the negative impact to all those groups of people if you don't manifest the thing that you desire? Again, this shows you inherent value to you of the thing that you desire to manifest. So those steps are really, really important. And again, they're really important on the front end, on the setting of the goal or the setting of the thing that you desire to manifest and achieve. So, and since we're kind of stepping into these steps, the first thing I'm going to tell you that is imperative to do when it comes time to do manifestation is to clear the bandwidth. So when you're actually getting ready to sit down and say, okay, here's the thing that I desire to manifest, it's really, really important that you clear your cognitive bandwidth. And I talk about bandwidth like this. Okay. So imagine a computer program, a computer system, or your computer. All right. When you've got all these tabs open and all these applications open, even though it's not the thing that you're focusing on right there on the screen, they're all running in the background and they're taking up bandwidth in the computer. We're no different. So even though you may be focusing on one thing right now, or two things or three things, everything else that's in your mind, that's on your plate, that's in your energy field, that's running in your bandwidth. And anything that's not serving your highest and best good that's running in that bandwidth is actually taking away from your ability to create and manifest the things that you desire. So it's really important that we regularly be clearing up that bandwidth. So one of the things that is suggested now scientifically when it comes to achieving goals or manifesting is that you multitask prior to sitting down and focusing on either the tasks that you need to do to achieve the thing that you desire to manifest or setting the initial goal. So what does that mean? Well, it means that it's easier for the brain to completely focus on one thing after it's been focusing on a broader spectrum of things. So I'm the queen of multitasking. I don't know if any of the rest of you are, but literally I can be messaging someone over here. I could be working on notes for an upcoming program thing. I can be in my Telegram posting something, and then all of a sudden I'm doing a story. And like, that is how I live the majority of my day, is in a constant state of multitasking. And I actually perform very well in that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being a phenomenal multitasker. What is important, though, is that when it comes time for you to actually sit down and decide on the thing that you desire to manifest or create, or to action the steps that you need to take towards that manifestation or creation, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, that you have cleared the bandwidth and that you're able to focus. And so how you do this is right before multitasking. So go about doing all your stuff and then come into a focused perspective. So it doesn't really work to wake up in the morning after you've been sleeping and then be like, okay, I'm going to sit down straight away to my creation and manifestation and, doing my tasks toward achieving the goal. Like, you're not going to be as effective that way. So get up in the morning and do all the things that you need to do. Get the kids ready for school, make coffee, make lunches, be answering messages, look at your emails, do all of that. Clear the bandwidth up of the stuff that's running that's like, oh my gosh, I need to get to that. Oh my God, I need to do that. And then hone in on your manifestation goals. Okay, back to this piece about this being visual, right? So when we're actually physically focused on the goal, our autonomic nervous system is impacted. So we have two branches of our visual system. One is restricted, like it's limited. So it's like, it would be like a detailed camera or snapshot of what we're seeing in our environment or in our world, right? And then the other one is like this broader world view, which is like our peripheral vision, right? Where we're seeing lots of things at once. But that is actually a more relaxed state of our neural circuits. So when we're focused on one thing, we're targeting and restricting our neural circuits. And when we're looking at the peripheral or the bigger vision, like, we're relaxing those neural circuits. This is important because that big picture visioning that we talked about, that big goal, the end goal, like that is, we are using that more expanded peripheral part of our vision system, right? It's not the specific one. The reason we want to focus on the specific one is what I'm going to tell you about next. So our circulatory system in our body affects and interacts with our visual systems, okay? And when we are focused on a specific goal, a targeted goal, something that we can see and easily achieve, maybe not easily, but is an extremely difficult goal, incremental goal in front of us, our blood pressure is impacted. And when our blood pressure is impacted, our systolic blood pressure goes up. So that's that upper, oh, my hand's cramping. That's that upper number in your blood pressure, right? The systolic blood pressure. That goes up. When that goes up, adrenaline is released in our system. And that puts us into a state of readiness. That puts us into a state of motivation and ability to action, right? It impacts our oxygen levels. It impacts our epinephrine levels. It impacts dopamine. So that our circulatory system does all of that. Okay. And that interacts with our visual system and impacts our visual system. So it links that brain to body coordination. And this is scientific manifestation. This is actually how manifestation happens. Our vision, and this can be specific as well as visioning. And we're going to talk about these two different types of this and how you can really harness the power of this targeted visualization when you can't actually see the finish line, right? Like, we're going to talk about how to do that, but just conceptually stay with me here for a minute. This is scientific manifestation. When we have the ability to imagine the goal and then engage in the physical pursuit of that goal. We can't do that without our circulatory system. We can't do that without blood pressure. And this is, to me, absolutely fascinating because the heart is such an important organ in 5-element theory. So again, we're going to be talking about that and why, and I'm going to be tying in manifestation and the heart in the summit. So you definitely want to come learn more about the systems of the body and how they relate to manifestation in the summit. So that's a little bit of how our body, like the physical body has to get into a state of readiness and action for us to maintain motivation and achieve our goals. Because otherwise we are sedentary. Otherwise we're just thinking and visualizing about the thing that we want and we're not taking action and going after them. And that doesn't work. Like it just doesn't work. So the things that we desire to manifest, our goals, the things that we desire to create, they have to be significant, they have to be inspirational, and they have to be action oriented. Those are the three things. Like you have to have those three things or you're not going to be able to manifest your goals, right? Like it just, and again, it's like, this is where the spiritual community, like where I get the shits with the spiritual community, because I'm like, it's not just about sitting around dreaming and visioning the thing that you desire. Like that is just not how it works. So focused vision, stay with me here. Focused vision creates forward momentum. Okay. Broader vision relaxes our visual systems. And so we're able to conceptualize, but the body isn't physically responding. So when we set our end goal, right, which let's say the end goal is $200,000 in 6 months. When we set that end goal, we're imagining all the things, the broader things, the why, like why we want to, right? When we do that initial exercise, we imagine all the broader things that exists outside, like it's in our periphery. It's our broader vision. Our autonomic nervous system is relaxed. It is not fired up. It is not action ready because we're just visualizing the bigger picture. So we then need to hone in on the intermittent goals, like the goals along the way that we're going to achieve to hit that broader goal. And then with the specific focusing on these smaller goals, that's where we engage that more restricted visual system. And we create forward momentum by creating a physical response in the body. So there is an exercise that you can do to do this. And I'm going to actually give you two, but there is an exercise that you can do to like begin to train the body to do this. And remember, through repetition and training, and change behavioral patterns, we actually create neuroplasticity, and then we create change and growth in the brain, right? So one of the things that you can do is, and I actually do this with my goal. So I combine a little bit of the science and a little bit of just my intuition on how this works. So on my whiteboard, I have, and I actually have a goal of 200,000, but it's in 90 days. So I have on my whiteboard, 200,000. Oh no, 60 days. 200,000 in 60 days. My whiteboard's not in here actually right now. I think the people that do my hair took it out the other day. But typically every morning I get up and I come into my office and I'm sitting here and I literally am looking at my whiteboard. And at the center top of my whiteboard it says 200K in 60 days. Okay, and it's a relatively small point on the whiteboard. So when I come into my office, I multitask. I do my things. Blah blah blah. Then I take a few moments. I focus on that writing. I focus all my intention in on this one place. I hold that for about 60 seconds, about 1 minute. Sometimes I do it a little bit longer, but 1 minute where I'm just holding and focusing my attention there in one spot. And then in my subconscious mind, also, I'm reading that 200K in 60 days. Though that's a bigger goal, my subconscious mind is honing in on that. I'm focusing on one point in the board, and then my body and my brain are being placed into a state of readiness because I'm focusing my vision. So again, you want to multitask prior to that. So harnessing this visual system, harnessing your visual system and training your brain to focus on, and it doesn't have to be writing. It can literally be spot on the ceiling. It can be a leaf on a tree outside your window. But this focusing your visual systems it increases your physical body has a response to this. And then you begin to train your body for readiness and motivation and action. Okay. So our visual perception is the thing. This is scientifically proven now. Our visual perception is the thing that helps us anchor our goals. That's the thing that helps us anchor that thing that we desire to manifest. And so it's important, I think, right now to talk about this thinking versus seeing thing, right? because we now know that visualization of end goals, it doesn't give us the dopamine hit. It doesn't create readiness for action in the body. It doesn't create motivation to move towards the goals. Visualization is very helpful and important in getting goal pursuit started, in deciding what it is that we want, in doing that big picture visioning, like very important. It helps us get clarity. It helps us determine inherent value to us, right? But it's not effective in maintaining the pursuit of that thing that we desire to manifest. That's where we have to really focus our visualization and our vision. So our visualization, that specific visualization, increases blood pressure, and that's how that's what brings our body into this state of action and readiness, right? And then that helps us maintain ongoing progress towards our goal. So now I'm going to tell you the thing that's going to blow your mind. And it's the thing that the spiritual community will absolutely tell you to never do. And so they're all wrong. It's literally scientifically proven now. So this is the game changer. All of this stuff combined together gives you such a huge edge in your manifestation and creation abilities. But this is the game changer. What we do want to visualize. So we don't get a payoff. We don't get a physical action, a physical body response to visualize, to big picture visioning and visualization. Okay. What we should be visualizing that does give us a tremendous edge is failure. Yes, you heard me right. You should be visualizing failure. All the ways in which you could fail in achieving the thing that you desire. All the ways that you could fail in not achieving and reaching your desired outcome, the thing you desire to manifest, the thing that you're desperately, maybe not desperately, but the thing that you're deeply desiring to create, right? All the ways in which it could go wrong, all the ways in which it could fail. Regularly foreshadowing and visualizing failure gives you a 50% higher chance, over 50% higher chance of achieving the thing that you desire to manifest. Whose mind's blown? That's wild, right? Because we're told, like, this is the spiritual bypassing thing in the spiritual community. Like, we're told to not think about that. And it's so funny because for me, I have been telling my clients, like, when they get stuck and when they're in stagnation when it comes to manifestation, I'm always like, okay, what's the worst case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? You don't create the thing you want to create. Go all the way to worst case scenario. You don't manifest the money that you want to manifest. You can't pay your rent or your mortgage. You get evicted. You end up on the street, and then you ultimately die because you don't have any money to feed yourself. Like, what is the worst case scenario? I tell my clients that all the time, and they're like, whoa. And I'm like, no, what's the worst case scenario? Because the truth of the matter is, it's never going to fucking get there. You're never going to let yourself get there. But this is now science. Like, that was before my divine download telling you what I thought. But this is the science. This is because, remember, our little part of our brain called the amygdala, right? Who avoids embarrassment, who is motivated by fear, who is the primary component of the neural circuit that is involved in manifestation and achieving goals. Remember, there's just one. There's so many circuits in the brain, right? There's only one that's involved in achieving goals and manifestation, all right? And the primary component of that neural circuit is the amygdala, who is motivated by fear. So sorry, folks, you cannot affirm your way to the things that you desire. You cannot positively visualize and achieve the things that you desire to manifest. It's just not effective, and your body and your brain are not going to motivate you to do it. What it is motivated by is fear and desire to not be embarrassed and desire to not be a failure. Okay? So we double our chance of achieving the thing we desire to manifest if we foreshadow failure regularly. What is going to happen if I don't take this next action, right? So you get the divine guidance, you know the next right inspired action to take. That big time visualization of your goal is not going to motivate your body to be in a state of action or a state of readiness. Doesn't happen. But if you foreshadow the negative effect of you not taking that inspired action, brain kicks in, blood pressure kicks in, motivation kicks in. And now what do? You avoid the negative and you move towards the positive. How bad is it going to be if I fail? The amygdala does not want you to fail. And your brain is a powerful, powerful thing. It will avoid failure at all costs. So if you are regularly reminding it of what failure could happen, it's going to avoid that at all costs. So, okay, so how do we do this, right? Well, how do we foreshadow failure? Well, you do it by writing and journaling about it, right? You do it by visualizing it. You do it by speaking it out loud to people. And it may seem counterintuitive, but it works. So you want the edge or don't you? Do the things. The brain and the body is going to move away from fearful things, and it's not necessarily going to move towards things it desires. Like, this is where dopamine comes in and where dopamine plays a role. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But because there's a big misconception that dopamine is all about pleasure and enjoyment. And it's actually not. Dopamine is all about motivation. You can still experience pleasure and enjoyment if you have low dopamine reserves, or if you have reduced levels of dopamine, or if you are void of dopamine. You can still enjoy something. You can still enjoy pleasure, but you will not be motivated to go after it, to go get it, to create it. So dopamine is actually our motivation neuromodulator, not our pleasure and enjoyment neuromodulator. So that's just a common misconception about dopamine. Okay. So there's this thing in science called one trial learning. And I just think it's important to mention here because it'll give you a little explanation of this. So of why, so the brain in the body, right? The amygdala. One horrible event that happens to us, one situation, one scenario can rewire completely our neural circuitry. It can rewire that neural circuitry bias towards moving away from something. Okay. So just takes one time for something bad to happen. This is called one trial learning. It doesn't work in the positive direction. So having something incredibly positive and amazing happen to you may motivate you slightly to attempt to maybe at some point recreate that experience, but it doesn't motivate you to do it. Something bad can happen to you one time and you will never do it again. One trial learning. Okay. So this is why it's important to be visualizing failure, foreshadowing failure. Okay. Our avoidance circuits in our brain and body are way more powerful than our desire to go after something and to create something. Okay. So let's talk about goal setting. So this is an important part of this as well, because you will hear me frequently say you have to be able to fully energetically back the thing that you desire. Like, so when you're creating goals and you're deciding, I want to manifest this thing, I want to create this thing in my life, you have to be able to fully energetically back it. And I've been saying that forever. And people are like, well, what does that mean? Like, what does fully energetically backing it mean? Well, I'm going to tell you now scientifically what it means. Okay. In relation to goal setting or manifestation, there's 3 categories: easy, moderate, and impossible. Okay. And now we're going to speak about these 3 levels of goals, 3 tiers of goals, and how they relate to our autonomic nervous system. Remember, in order to achieve a goal, to create, to manifest, we have to engage that autonomic nervous system, right? We've got to create that bridge between our vision and our circulatory system. We've got to increase our blood pressure, which then creates adrenaline and epinephrine and norepinephrine and dopamine, right? So when it comes to goal setting, we've got 3 levels: easy, moderate, and possible. Easy, you don't engage the autonomic nervous system. If the goal is too easy, it's not, you don't get the adrenaline, right? So no, your body will not recruit action if a goal is too easy. So if you're having difficulty achieving a goal that you've set, the first thing you need to ask yourself is it too easy? And a lot of people err on this side of it's too easy because they're afraid to go after the bigger goals. So they just set the smaller ones, and then they start failing at achieving the smaller goals. And they're like, wait a minute. And a perfect example of this is like high, low, mid-end offers, right? Like all of a sudden the client will be like, why are none of my low-end offers selling out? Like nobody's buying my low-end offers. It's too easy. You've gone beyond it. Like you have no desire to create or manifest a sold out low-end offer. Like wait until you do, right? Or find a bigger goal associated with releasing the low-end offer. So impossible goals that you can't fully energetically back. Nothing's going to happen there either because the brain and the body are like, we can't achieve that. Not going to engage your autonomic nervous system. So the goal has to be moderate, realistic, but truly challenging. So you can believe that you can achieve it, but it's fucking hard. It's going to be hard. You know that you're going to have to put the work in. You know, you're going to have to do the things. You know, you're going to have to remain dedicated and devotional to your personal practices. You know that you're going to have to take action. You know that you're going to have to like create momentum in your life to achieve the thing that you desire. So again, it needs to be realistic. You need to fully energetically be able to back it, but it needs to be truly challenging. If it's not challenging enough, autonomic nervous system won't engage. If it's too challenging, autonomic nervous system won't engage. Obviously, trial and error, right? And if you're not achieving the thing that you want after going through the steps I'm about to tell you to go through, then perhaps you need to revisit the goal in the first place and decide, is it too big, too small, or just enough? Like Goldilocks. Just think of your goal manifestation as Goldilocks. The Goldilocks method of goal manifestation. Somebody on the team TM that for me, please. The Goldilocks method of manifestation, we're going to call that. So you want this thing, right? The moderate, truly challenging, to be just outside your immediate abilities. You want to have to work for it. So energetic backing equals physical backing, right? Like when you can fully energetically back a thing, it means that you are engaging your autonomic nervous system to support you in the pursuit of the thing that you desire. If you are, the other thing that can happen here though, is if you can't fully energetically back it, you can collapse your system through overwhelm. So sometimes the autonomic nervous system won't engage, but sometimes it's like realistic enough, but then you get overwhelmed and then you collapse the system, right? So that's not good either. And so staying out of states of overwhelm is really, really important in manifestation. That's why it's so important to be meditating and to be journaling and to be, getting out in nature, to be grounding yourself, because overwhelm is what crashes your autonomic nervous system. And even, you're walking a bit of a tightrope there anyway, when you're in that moderate category of goal setting, because it is hard. It is difficult. You are going to have to work. You are going to have to put in effort. So you need to make sure that you're not getting overwhelmed and that you're not crashing your system. So a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about today, just so that you're aware of where it comes from, it's the work of a woman named Emily Balcetis, and she has a TED Talk. So you should definitely check that out. She's done so much research on this. So the stuff I'm talking about primarily comes from her. And some of the stuff that we're going to talk about at the end of this is from a guy named Joe Huberman, who has a podcast called The Huberman Lab, which is next level for all things really. And if you're not following that, you should. The other thing I get asked all the time is like, how many goals should I have? How many things should I be trying to manifest at once? And in reality, the truth is that, again, because of this not wanting to crash the system, like 1 to 3 big goals is really about all your system is going to be able to handle. Yeah, so 1 to 3 major goals in a year is about all you're going to be able to manage without crashing the system, okay? Without getting really, really overwhelmed. Okay, so The next thing is specificity, right? And we're always talking about this, right? Like, and I'm always giving this example of you, like when you're telling the universe what you want, you know, you wouldn't go into the Italian restaurant and sit down and when the waiter comes up and asks you what you want, say, I don't want spaghetti. You wouldn't say that. You sit down at the Italian restaurant and you're like, I want spaghetti bolognese with extra meatballs, if you're me, and you want a nice Chianti, and you want some garlic bread with cheese, and you want some Parmesan on the side, and you want some chopped chili or some chili flakes on the side as well, right? You're really, really specific. You have to do the same with the universe. You have to do the same in manifestation and in goal setting. Specificity is key. And not only do you have to be specific in the thing that you desire, the outcome, but you have to be specific and set specific action steps that will create the outcome. So there have to be these steps in between where you are right now and your desired outcome. You don't just visualize the outcome and then get there. Like, you will get there faster, more efficiently, and actually get there if you are setting these very, very concrete action steps towards your goal. And then it's important that you update these, right? Because some things are going to work and some things aren't. Things change all the time. Your external landscape is changing frequently, usually as a result of your internal landscape. So it's really important that you are setting these concrete action steps, and then with periodic regularity, you are assessing the progress and then revising or revamping these goals. It's also really important that you reward yourself along the way, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So we're going to talk about dopamine, because dopamine is actually key in what we're going to talk about here with setting these specific action steps and then rewarding or revamping where we're headed. So like I mentioned before, we believe that it's a common misconception that dopamine is the molecule of pleasure and enjoyment, and it is actually, in fact, the molecule of motivation. So dopamine helps us seek out goals and pleasure in both long-term and short-term desires. So you create short-term manifestation and you create long-term manifestation. Dopamine is actually the neuromodulator that helps you seek out that motivates you to seek that thing out, to continually go after that thing. That's dopamine. And there is something in relation to dopamine called reward prediction error. So, and what that means is that dopamine is released dopamine isn't always released at the same time, in the same experiences and in the same circumstances. So reward prediction error is that dopamine is released in greater quantity when something happens that's positive and novel. So positive and unique. And so, for example, like if somebody throws you a surprise party, that's going to give you a much bigger hit of dopamine than if you know you have a birthday party and you're anticipating it and you're getting excited about it. Now, the anticipation gives you a dopamine hit, and then the party is going to give you a dopamine hit. But you're going to get a much bigger dopamine hit if it's a surprise party and you didn't know about it. But the thing that we know about dopamine is it is what continues our progress. Like it motivates us to continue to progress and achieve ultimately our goals. In order to do that, we need to reward ourselves at regular intervals. So this, to me, I feel like goes hand in hand with evaluating our progress. Like, it's just important that we do this. And from my perspective, I really believe that on a weekly basis, it's really important. So for me, basically what I do is at the end of every week, I evaluate how I did in the progress towards my goals the week before, and then I set my non-negotiables for the week after. And so you hear me talking about that. These are in all areas, right? This is, how did I do in my personal practices? How did I do in my cultivation of my connection with the divine? How did I do in setting myself up to be able to receive divine guidance? Once I received that divine guidance, how did I do in following through with inspired action? What were my measurable goals that I needed to achieve this week that are taking me closer to my long-term goal and the thing that I desire to manifest long-term. So this week it might be $25,000 or it might be $30,000 or whatever it is. And then I'm creating action steps that are going to take me closer to that financial goal this week. So then at the end of the week, I'm going to do an autopsy and I'm going to evaluate what went right and what went wrong. I'm then going to reward myself for the stuff that I did right. And it's not like I don't need to go out and buy myself something. Cognitive reward is actually much more powerful than material reward. So it's an acknowledgement of everything that I did right. Oh my God, that was great. You did that. Good job. Right? It's like being your own inner cheerleader, like stoking the fire of your heart, your internal flame, and cheerleading yourself. Like, yes, you're amazing. You did so good. Way to go on that. And okay, here's where you didn't do a great job. Or this didn't work. Like I tried this thing and it didn't work. Okay. And I didn't achieve my goal this week, ultimately. All right. So what needs to change next week? What steps and actions do we take next week to see how much further it gets us to our goal? So you reward yourself for what you have achieved and you implement new and or different steps towards a new incremental goal the next week. Or maybe it's the same goal because you didn't achieve it that week, right? Those rewards, those cognitive rewards give you dopamine hit, which then keeps you motivated to be moving towards those goals. And those behavioral tools, using them time after time after time, the power of repetition engages neuroplasticity. The brain learns, it learns more quickly. And so 3 weeks from now, if you're doing that, if you're engaging in those behavioral processes, 3 weeks from now, you're going to be a lot more efficient, you're going to be a lot more effective, and you're going to be hitting and achieving your goals much quicker because the brain is learning. Remember, if you're failing, and as you're going through this, remember, right? If this week you failed 20% of your goal and you hit 80, you're doing great. If you're in the 70-30, you need to tweak some things. If you're in the, 40-60, like you need to tweak a lot of things, but you're still learning. So your goal is to be getting 15 to 20% wrong every week and 80 to 85% right every week. Okay. That's going to create the neuroplasticity. We have to be extremely detailed in those action steps though. Like it needs to be very, very clear, not vague. So reward and or update goals. The more we practice, the better we get, the easier and more effortlessly we manifest. So the more we do this, the more we engage in these activities, the easier it gets for us to manifest. So one of the things that we are going to be talking a lot about in Mastering Your Spiritual Money Game is these behavioral patterns, but how the behavioral patterns impact our neurotransmitters, how nutrition positively impacts our neurotransmitters, particularly this neuromodulator of dopamine, and how supplementation can do the same. So this is stuff that I'm reserving for Mastering Your Spiritual Money Game because, again, there are multiple ways that we can give ourselves the edge to manifest and create the life that we desire, to manifest and create the money that we desire, quite frankly. And I mean, here's the thing. We all want to create financial growth and expansion in our lives, right? You wouldn't be here on my 3-day live Zoom event called Money Magic Manifestation if you didn't want to make more money or have more money. And the truth of the matter is that we need to understand the energetics of money. We need to live each day like a ritual and engage the magic because the magic is so, so, so important. But there are also a bunch of scientific, physical things that we can do to help us create and manifest more quickly. And I'm not interested anymore in just doing the first two things alone, because that third component is actually what creates efficiency and is the ultimate hack. And so there's all this stuff that we can do. And there's stuff we can do nutritionally to support the body to produce more dopamine. There's stuff we can do with supplementation that can support the body to produce more dopamine. And so I really want to begin to work in this very holistic way when it comes to wealth. How do we create wealth from a holistic standpoint? And so there's going to be a big section of Mastering Your Spiritual Money Game where we're going to be talking about behavioral patterns, nutrition, naturopathy, and supplementation and herbology, and how we can use the combination of those things to set our physical body and our visual systems up for maximum efficiency and effectiveness. And that's it. I mean, doing this any other way doesn't make sense anymore, especially now that we have this information. And so if you're not choosing to engage in these things, I'm like, do you really want the thing that you desire? Because there's so much information out there on how we can expand our ability. The dopamine reward prediction error that we were speaking about earlier, this is what we can leverage to achieve our goals. This is what helps us achieve our goals because it helps us know how far out to set the milestones. And this is individual for everyone, right? This is individual for everyone. And so I want to tell you about something right now that is really important, I think, when it comes to manifestation, because sometimes we're doing things or we're forcing ourselves to do things because we believe that it's a thing that we should do. Or again, we're looking outside ourselves at something somebody else is doing. And because it's working for them, we're forcing ourselves to do it. So when we do something by choice, we raise our frequency, our energy, and vibration. Okay. So when we're like, oh my God, I want to do this thing, I'm super excited about it, we engage this dopamine reward prediction error in a positive trajectory, right? We engage dopamine, we raise our frequency, energy, and vibration when we're doing something by choice. The opposite happens when we're feeling forced. So if we're feeling forced to do something, or we perceive that we're being forced to do something, even by ourselves, the opposite happens. We lower our vibration, we lower our frequency, we depress our dopamine. And that depressed dopamine is a physical response, and it is difficult to recover from it. So this is why, when we engage in activities that are not what we're aligned to doing, this is where the spirituality piece of alignment comes in. When we're doing actions that we're not aligned with, we're actually creating a physical response in our body of dopamine depression. And that is difficult to recover from, right? Not increasing dopamine is one thing, but when we experience disappointment and we depress dopamine, then we have to recover from that. And so we want to not force ourselves as much as possible. Now, that doesn't mean you don't show up and do the things that you know that you need to do. It just means that if you're perceiving that you're being forced to do something, you are not going to manifest because you're going to be depressing your dopamine receptors. So there's physiological implications of this, right? We need to understand the why we're doing the thing. So in order to not feel forced by, sometimes some of the trivial things that we don't necessarily want to do, but that we need to do in the pursuit of our manifestation or our desire, we need to understand why we're doing it. And that's where that big picture why and visualizing comes in, and where we can revisit that for motivation, right? When we're having difficulty doing the day-to-day tasks. So reward, right? Reward. Our brain is everything. We need to affirm to ourselves that we're doing the right thing. We need to affirm to ourselves that we aren't failing. So here's something very important. There is a difference between foreshadowing failure and telling yourself you're a failure. So do not get into that habit or trick of being like, I'm a failure, I'm a failure, I'm a failure. This is where you're not, so you're rewarding yourself for what you've achieved. And if you have not achieved something, you are revamping your plan of attack, right? You are not lingering on how you failed. You are not telling yourself that you are a failure. Foreshadowing failure is different than telling yourself you're a failure. Be very careful. This is where mind your mind, mind your mouth comes in play, right? It's different to say, this is the potential of what could happen if I don't do this thing or I don't achieve this thing, versus I am this thing. All right. So you use the foreshadowing of failure to motivate fear and anxiety in your life so that you go towards the behaviors, the correct behaviors to achieve the thing you desire, and you move away from the things that you shouldn't be doing. But you don't call yourself a failure. So that's important, I think. Okay, so we've got 2 more things to cover and then we'll be done. I know this was a long one, but hopefully you found this, really, really impactful and helpful. I want to now share with you something that I just think is so freaking next level, and it's a total game changer. And this is from Joe Huberman, and it's something that he calls space-time bridging. And it's really powerful, and it's powerful in harnessing those visual, the visual channels that we talked about earlier. So we have the kind of narrow, restricted visual channels, and then we have the broader peripheral, like big picture visual channels, right? So this is an exercise that he has created to engage neuroplasticity and to get the brain being able to easily switch between those two, so that we more easily achieve our goals. So, so we have this like internal landscape, right? Which is everything that's happening inside of us. And I'm always talking about this internal landscape versus external landscape. But I'm always telling you that, your internal landscape, your external landscape is a direct reflection of your internal landscape. But when we're looking internally, we have very restricted vision. Okay. And then when we're looking externally, so it's called peripersonal, when it's like inside our physical body. So, or inside our energetic and auric field, right? Our own personal space. It's peripersonal, or intero landscape. And then we have external landscape, the broader, bigger picture, the more global vision of the thing that we desire, or our actual reality on this planet, right? So in this exercise, what he has you do is close your eyes and visualize your inner landscape, right? And you're just visualizing everything internally, like you are completely like blacking out anything that's happening outside of your peripersonal space, outside of your internal landscape. So you close your eyes, you visualize completely your inner landscape, and you take 3 slow rhythmic breaths. And then you open your eyes and immediately focus somewhere on the structure of your body. So he recommends looking at like your palm, but you could look at anything, your fingernail, your knee, your foot, your toe, whatever. Okay. So you immediately open your eyes and focus on somewhere on the surface of your body. And you take 3 deep rhythmic breaths. While you're doing that, you are focusing still 90% on your internal landscape and 10% on your palm, right? So your focus is still 90% internally, and you're putting 10% of your focus on your palm while you're taking those 3 deep breaths. Then you immediately open your eyes and you look at a station. So this is going to be something that's 5 to 15 feet away from you, and you're going to focus on that thing. So this might be a leaf outside a window. If you're outside, you're focusing on some point 5 to 15 feet away from you. And you're putting 90% now of your attention on that thing, on that station. And 10% you're keeping internally. And it's likely that 10% you're just focusing on your breathing, right? Because you're going to take 3 more deep rhythmic breaths. So the 10% is you focusing on your breathing, while 90% of your attention is focused on this station 5 to 15 feet away from you. 3 deep breaths. You immediately open your eyes and then focus on a further station. So this is more like a horizon, or, if you're inside a room, you might be looking across the room, and then you might be considering the room as a whole on this part. Or if you're outside, you might have looked 5 to 15 feet away, and then now you're looking at the horizon. So you're taking 3 deep breaths. And in this one, you are focusing 99 to 100% of your attention. You are attempting to focus 99 to 100% of your attention on that external location, on that horizon, or on that room as a whole, or that home as a whole, right? And then you are like immediately move into focusing on expanding both the internal and the external landscape as much as you possibly can while you take 3 breaths. So now it's like you're putting 100% effort into focusing internally and externally at the same time for 3 breaths. And then you immediately return to the internal landscape and you repeat. We'll put this process in the email to you as well, so don't feel like you need to be typing crazily. And then you repeat it 2 to 3 times. So he says this takes like 3 to 4 minutes total, but you go through this 3 to 4 times. And essentially what he says that this is doing is helping you learn how to batch time. Like when we're focusing on that narrow point close to the body, we're measuring time more finely. And then when we focus outside of ourselves, we're beginning to engage the dopamine system, right? So when we're focusing on these small incremental places, we're beginning to engage the dopamine system, that goal-directed system, that systemic, systolic blood pressure. And then when we start to engage in that more external, like that broader visual, which is like our large goal, our bigger goal, right? We're batching time differently. Our frame rate changes. So we use our visual and cognitive reward system to manifest goals, and that engages neuroplasticity. So this exercise actually trains you to do that. It's training you to change between this. It's training you how to go from internal to external. And that is actually how we engage our physiological response for manifestation. He does this every morning, he says. Yeah. And so it's just an exercise that you can do to begin to train the body. Joe Huberman. He has a podcast called Huberman Lab, which has got so much epic information on it. Okay, so in recap, we're going to go through what are the steps of manifestation and creation. Okay, so the first one is clear the cognitive bandwidth, right? Doing the multitasking, clearing the cognitive bandwidth. Then we're coming in and defining the goal. Remembering that our goals need to be moderate, right? We don't want them impossible and we don't want them too easy. We want them challenging, but not impossible. Then we're going to visualize that goal in the big picture way. We're going to define the why. So we're going to step in and say, why do we want the thing? How is it going to positively impact us, our immediate family, our extended family, our close friends and family, our extended community, and ultimately out to the world, right? And then after that, we're going to define the negative impact. So these 2 steps, again, remember, are helping us determine what is inherently valuable to us and if it's the correct goal to be setting. We're then going to create specific, concrete action steps to take towards that goal. We're going to journal. We're regularly going to journal, reflect, and speak about foreshadowed failure. We're going to focus on those visual points, right? The small milestones, and we're going to remove the distractions. We're going to activate dopamine and that systolic blood pressure to activate readiness and forward momentum. Like here's where we're going to daily, we're going to use that space-time bridging that we just talked about. So we're going to focus on those visual points. The thing that I explained to you that I do every day when I come in and I'm looking at my bulletin board, that's engaging our visual points, right? We're removing distractions for a period of time so that we can take focused action towards our goals. We're going to regularly revisit. So, and I think on the foreshadowed failure, I think once a week is great to do that. And if you want to do it a couple more times than that, that's great. But I think once a week is sufficient on foreshadowed failure. And then weekly, I believe weekly is best, revisiting action steps, revising if needed, setting those milestones, rewarding yourself along the way, and then adjusting what's next based on what happened in the previous week. That way you're continually through that reward, activating dopamine, which is keeping you motivated towards your goals. Revisit and then you repeat. So you repeat steps 7 through 10, where you're foreshadowing, you're doing the visual focus, you're visiting the action steps, you're rewarding yourself, you're foreshadowing failure, you're just going back through those final steps. So we're going to send all of this out to you in an email so that you have it. We'll also put it in the Revolutionary Wealth group in the notes section. So we'll put these steps of manifestation. We will put the space-time bridging exercise. And there you have it, the science of manifestation. So this is all the stuff in my world that I'm geeking out about. If you want to go more in depth into this, and you have your secret words, and you are live on the Zoom call right now, your secret word is going to be typed in. Your secret word is now in the chat in the Zoom. So if you have all three, send us all three to support@theleahsteele.com, and you will get your special invitation to join me for a deeper dive into the science of manifestation and some of the incredible content that we're going to be covering in Mastering Your Spiritual Money Game. And look, the time is now. This is the last round of Mastering Your Spiritual Money Game I'm going to be facilitating. I'm going to be facilitating all of this content live. We are going to be doing emotional clearing specific to the science of manifestation. We're going to be, you guys, the brain to body clearing that we're going to be doing in Mastering Your Spiritual Money Game is going to be next level. So, and we'll be offering this again, but it will just be as an evergreen. You will not have an opportunity to do clearing with me. You will not have an opportunity to be on live with me, and be on live in the group calls with me. This is it. So Master Your Spiritual Money Game. If you are an alumni, there is an alumni rate, okay? That will be posted today in your groups. If you are new to me, click that lead page, do the thing, click the link, join us. We're starting August 8th. It's going to be next level. It's going to be amazing. This is the whole new wave of how I'm doing my wealth alchemy work. It will continue on into Ouroboros, and it's just going to be next level. So you email your 3 words to support@theleahsteele.com. Any questions on any of the programs, you can email to support@theleahsteele.com. There is still time for 24 more hours to get in on the mystery course. We are going to close that down here in just about, I'd say 24 to 48 hours. But there is still time to get in on that mystery course. It's $144. We are getting up there towards our goal there, but it's going to be epic regardless. And the course is actually going out, should be out by Wednesday of this week to everyone. Yeah, so click the link in the show notes, or in the group. We will just put all the links in the group for you guys of all the things that we've been talking about. We've got the certainty factor activation coming up, Mastering Your Spiritual Money Game starting on the 8th. Yeah, I think that's it. So science of manifestation. And remember, it is this holistic approach, money, magic, and manifestation, that really helps you achieve and create the life that you deeply desire. Like using all the pieces available to you, not just one, not just two, not just 3, but all. The Goldilocks method of manifestation. Okay, I love you guys so much. Have an amazing rest of your day, morning, evening, wherever you are in the world as you are catching this live stream, or you are listening to or watching the replay. Remember, it is your divine birthright to be wealthy in all areas of your life. And you are so worthy and you are so deserving. Now do the damn thing.
That's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to connect with me on social media and reach out. I love hearing from you. And if you want more of me, real, raw, and uncensored, make sure to join the Wealth Witch Telegram channel. It's my free channel where I share all of my random daily musings, as well as the information that I feel like is important and pertinent to my community. We've put a link to the Telegram channel in the show notes, so make sure to come join us over there if that intrigues you. Remember, wealth is a mindset, and you are the most powerful creator in your reality. Until next time, this is the Wealth Witch signing off.
I'm gonna live the time.